Darren McAntony, fascinating football club owner and Liverpool fan. So let's get your thoughts on this. Firstly, reading between the lines there, if an apology does come in this meeting, which we'd both love to be a fly on the wall in this morning between Mo Salah and Arne Slot, if that apology comes, do you think that's enough for Mo Salah to feature in some capacity or at least be on the bench against Brighton tomorrow?
Yeah, that comes down to the manager and trust. In other words, I'll accept the apology, I'll put you back in the squad, but if I don't bring you on the pitch, are you going to behave the same way after the game or say anything when you go off to the AFCON Nations Cup? So that's going to come down to how that conversation, happens today, what comes out from the conversation. He's handling it the right way. I like how Slot is. He's very calm. He's very measured. He's a man in control of his football club, even though they haven't had a great start to the season. If I'm in that room, I'm the manager. I am saying to Mo Salah today, what were you thinking? What was running through your mind? What were you hoping to achieve from what you did? And how did you help us as a club, me as a manager, your teammates, by what you did in the media zone? And wait for the response. If the response is quiet, if the response isn't, apologetic, if I don't see any, what's the right word I'm looking for? If I don't see any, I've lost for words now. If Mo Salah sits there basically and says, look, I've made a mistake.
Yeah.
I want to play for this club. I shouldn't have done what I did. Blah, 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 blah. You take the apology, you move on. You reintegrate him back into the squad. You let him be there tomorrow. You let his family say goodbye, and you try and move on as quickly as you can.
You want to see that sincerity.
Right. If Mo Salah sits there and says nothing and basically shows no apology whatsoever, I think we're at a stage now where you move past Mo Salah. I think Liverpool have to anyway. In the next two windows, that is a weakness in the squad. That's an area they have to strengthen. At some stage, we all have to move past legends. We just want to make sure they don't kill their legacies with our football club.
It could get a lot more toxic than it is right now, couldn't it? And I don't think, and let's get inside that heart of yours, Mr. McAntony. The Liverpool fan.
I love Mo Salah as a player.
They don't want to see a legend fade away like this into nasty, turn into a cesspit.
100%, and that's the worst thing that can happen. Toxicity spreads very quickly. And it was great they won the other night. That was really important because you imagine if they hadn't, then they would be focused on the results again and the manager and the pressure. Look, a club that large usually knows how to keep things in-house and take care of business. If it was happening in my football club, I'd back my manager all the way. Even if my manager wasn't winning games, because, no player is bigger than the football club. And as legendary as Mo Salah is, and we've had some wonderful moments, again, Liverpool, it's an institution as a club. It's bigger than every manager it's had, it's bigger than every player it's had, and at some stage, what's going on in the press isn't healthy for business. It's not good for the football.
Well, I was about to ask you that, these comments, and if there are more to come, in your scenario, say he's on the bench and doesn't get off against Brighton. And I
don't trust his agent, and I don't trust him.
Is he devaluing himself in terms of the January window?
Forget the finances in it. I think as Liverpool owners, the people there, forget about the finances, whether you're getting 50 million from Saudi or 25 million. It's not about the finances. It's about everything else. It's about the squad, the manager, getting back on a good run, making sure we're in the second half of the season, basically up the top of the table in the Champions League, but also replacing them eventually. It was always going to have to happen. Mo Salah can't defeat Father Time. Nobody ever has, even the greatest players in the world. So at some stage, he was going to leave. So it's a question of now, how is that departure going to be determined? What is history going to look back on and go, Mo Salah said goodbye at Anfield, scored in his final game, family waved to the crowd, or Mo Salah left under a cloud and hurt his legacy because of this? So that's really a choice for Mo Salah and his agent.
And what was your take of the pictures of him and Jordan Henderson? Like, I get on the surface of it, it's friend meets friend in a restaurant, potentially on a day off on Wednesday afternoon in London. But then when you look at, Jordan Henderson, he's obviously played in Saudi Arabia. Do you think that's premeditated from the Salah camp?
Jordan Henderson,
good look?
I don't think Jordan Henderson sat there talking about Saudi Arabia, and particularly not a player who basically left as quick as he got there. So I don't think he's really encouraging Mo Salah to go to Saudi. Jordan Henderson was such a great captain and leader at Liverpool. I would hope he was sat there pulling Mo Salah up on his behaviour and what he's done at that. Because if Jordan Henderson was captain of Liverpool, I'm not sure that would have happened. Are you? I'm not sure that would have all come out. I'm not sure Mo Salah would have walked into that media, the mix zone, and said all those things. So, good captains, and I think he basically was having a word with Mo and saying, my advice to you would be, sit with a manager, spill your guts, apologise, show contrition, and move on.
Right, we will move on, but we will keep talking about Liverpool, that is for sure. Sky Sports have partnered with Finalysis, an app where passionate fans share their opinions on their club. If you want to represent your club, scan the QR code right here or visit the Sky Sports app for more details. And we can speak now to a Liverpool supporter by the name of Connor Ray. Connor, a very good morning to you. So what's your take on this, Connor? Has Slot managed the media well this morning? And do you think that Mo Salah will be in that squad for the Brighton game tomorrow, Connor?
I mean, I think if he isn't, I'll be honest, I think if he isn't in the squad, I think it's been mismanaged. I think if you, as a manager, can't find a way around talking to a player to bring him around. Mo Salah gave his interview, right? And okay, I'm not for a second in any sense going to sit here and I'm not going to defend the manner in which he went about what he did. It was wrong, it was petty, it was childish, it was unprofessional. All those things are absolutely true. But the lad came out and said he wants to play football. He's one of the best players we've ever had. He's in the top 3, top 5 best ever Liverpool player debate. He's 4th top scorer in the Premier League. He's 4th in the Ballon d'Or as it stands. He had one of the best individual seasons we've ever seen last season. You don't drop off that much in 3-6 months as he has. The lad came and gave an interview and said he wants to play football. If the manager can't find a way to sit down with him and go, okay, well, let's find a way to let categorically the best player in the team play football, then it's been badly managed for me.
Connor, how long do you allow history, allow a player's behaviour go on like that? Because I understand all the things you're talking about, but we're talking about in the past tense. And no, he's not been the best player this season for Liverpool. Yes, he was the best player last year, but he's been nowhere near the best player this year. So, and I get, as fans, we get emotional about certain players, and you say he should be in the squad this weekend. Well, the squad went away, they went to Italy, they won in a tough place, we're under a serious amount of pressure, serious distraction going on. And now you want to bring that whole party to the Brighton game, where Liverpool have been poor at Anfield the last few games, where the cameras are going to be on him, his family, the boxes. Would you not rather focus on winning and getting 3 important points this weekend and worrying about Mo Salah when he comes back from the AFCON Cup?
Yeah, look, the results are the most important thing, of course, and getting 3 points has to be the priority. You're absolutely right, Darragh. But again, I say if the manager can't do that, and if the manager doesn't want to be able to do that by having the best players available to him, then I'm not sure what his aim is here. Like, that's we can talk about Salah's history. Yes, Salah hasn't been the best player this season. I absolutely agree with that as well. But he also hasn't been the worst, and that was part of what Salah said in his interview as well, right? Was
without a doubt.
Like if he feels he's being scapegoated, and again I'm going to say, like, he shouldn't have said it. He shouldn't have been there in the first place, and this shouldn't have come up. Just to reiterate, but part of what he said was he felt scapegoated, right? And that again falls at Slot's door, right? If Gakpo and Konate and Kerkez and other players who have been in far, far, far worse form this season than Salah are still getting played week in, week out. Salah can play in Gakpo's position, and there's no reason he shouldn't have been the last couple of weeks, really. We're looking at kind of dropping players on form, which is how this all got started in the first place. Salah was wrong to come out and say what he said, but if he'd gone to Slot privately and said it, then I think he's justified in what he said. The content of what he said is true for the most part.
What do you think, Connor, is the best outcome from now? Because I take your point, you don't want to see this legacy tainted even more than it has been over the last few weeks. If a Saudi club came in and offered you, let's just say, number out the sky, £50 million for Mo Salah, and obviously you're saving a hell of a lot of money from the money they gave him for this 2-year contract, and you could get someone like a Semenyo in, right, who has a release clause for £65 million. I put this to Darragh earlier, and he'd snap my arm off for it. Would that not be the best for all parties, for him to go now and you could do the goodbye later?
No, I don't think so. Not for me. I think you've got a club legend on your hand. I go back to the last days of Steven Gerrard at the club and how his last 6 months were horribly mismanaged by Brendan Rodgers and the hierarchy at the club as well. And he ended up leaving under a bit of a cloud and missed out on the next bit of success, when actually we would have been really, really handy to have had him around the dressing room. Mo Salah's a legend in football terms, and he's still capable of producing moments of magic. Klopp said about him that he can play well and late into his 30s with the condition he's in. You see that every time he takes his top off after every goal he scores, right? Like, he's not slowing down in terms of his physique. He got dropped for Inter, and the next thing he posts is himself in the gym again. It's not like he's not still got it and not still working.
Connor, I get that, but if it's still dividing a wedge between not just the manager and the rest of the squad, if it's still causing this stink, and it doesn't get resolved, you can't have that for the next 5 months, can you?
That picture alone, the day of the Champions League game, it did that. I mean, I get you're a Salah, you love Salah, but that picture, the fact he's put up his first post in 6 weeks, the team's having a terrible run, and he's making it all about himself again the day they're playing Inter Milan. If you're one of his teammates, and remember, dressing rooms are a sacred place, and things can get toxic very quickly. So you got this great legend, the GOAT at Liverpool, all of those things, and he's playing these games. He's trying to get a manager to tin tack. He's posting the day of a Champions League game they need to win, all a picture of himself, without saying, good luck to the boys tonight. Your eyes don't tell lies. You're watching him not able to beat even average fullbacks nowadays in the Premier League. You've seen the games this season. You're talking about what shape he's in. That's great. I don't want Iron Man playing. I want that player who can still do what he did. So are you not concerned even a tad bit?
Of course I am. Yeah, of course I'm concerned, Darragh. That's naturally. I've been concerned about Salah's form. I've been concerned about Van Dijk's form. I've been concerned about everybody's form this season. I think what I'm saying is it's not fair to nobody in our team can beat an average fullback at the moment. Nobody in our team can defend against an average striker at the moment. To put it all on Salah's door and to say that this stink is caused by Salah is completely unfair. He's come out and he's made a mistake, and for that, as I say again, he should apologise and be able to move on. But if that can't be facilitated by the club now, it's bad management. And it is, for me, it's as simple as that. If I'm his teammate, I want the best players in that dressing room next to me on the pitch week in, week out. And Salah is still one of the best players in the club, without a doubt.
Connor, one word and one word only. Does Mo Salah play for Liverpool again?
Yes.
There we go. Connor, good call.
Mikel Arteta has made it clear that Arsenal will need to unleash their complete player against Bayern Munich. The Gunners host the German champions at the Emirates Stadium on Wednesday, and one man in particular could be decisive. Ebereki Eze, described as a very complete player by teammate Mikel Merino, is emerging as one of Arsenal's most dangerous weapons ahead of their Champions League clash with Bayern. The 27-year-old announced himself in North London with a stunning hat-trick in his first derby since arriving in a £67.5 million move from Crystal Palace. His 3 brilliant goals dismantled Tottenham, and truthfully, he could have scored even more. Merino believes every one of Arsenal's 8 summer signings has lifted the squad's level, helping the team build a 6-point lead at the top of the Premier League. But Wednesday's matchup is different. Bayern Munich, the reigning Bundesliga champions, represent the toughest test yet for Arteta's side. Speaking after the win over Spurs, Merino praised Eze's qualities and hinted at the impact he could have in such a high-stakes European battle. We've brought in a lot of players who can make a difference. But you can see that other teams have spent big as well, the Spain international said. Individual brilliance can win matches, sure, but in the end, it's the team that matters. If you have great players who don't connect, that's a problem. The good thing about this group is that everyone thinks about the team first. When asked about Eze specifically, Merino didn't hesitate. I think he's incredibly complete. He can dribble, he can pass, and his technical quality is outstanding. In Spain, we always talk about players who can connect with others. He has that naturally. He grew up with that instinct to link play, move the ball, and build relationships on the pitch. He also has the mindset to get involved, demand the ball, and influence the game. At the same time, he's strong, he can take players on, and he can finish. He's a truly complete signing. Merino also touched on how the modern game often reduces players to simple numbers. These days everyone judges players by goals and assists, that's just how it is. But as footballers, we see the deeper qualities he brings, the technique, the movement, the intelligence. Even in training, you can tell immediately how special he is. Yes, he's scoring goals, but he's much more than that. He's an exceptional player, and we're incredibly lucky to have him. He can play in several positions and adapt to different systems. He's been a huge addition for Arsenal. Beyond the technical qualities, Merino believes Eze's attitude, and the healthy competition within the squad, will be crucial in Arsenal's title push. You can hear the calm in Ebereki's voice and see it in the way he carries himself. He's confident, grounded, and every morning we sit together in the sauna at the training ground and talk about everything, he added with a smile. He's a great guy, already fully integrated, and we need players like him. Competition is fierce. There's so much quality in this squad. That's exactly what the manager wanted, as many top players as possible, all ready to play. It makes his decisions tough, choosing who starts and who doesn't, but it also pushes every one of us to give our best in every session. And that's why we're improving as a team. As Arsenal prepare for Bayern's arrival, Arteta is facing one of the most delicate balancing acts of the season. The squad is healthy, competition is fierce, and expectations have never been higher. But behind the scenes, there is a growing sense that Eze's versatility and calm presence may be essential against a Bayern side known for controlling the tempo in big European nights. Arteta himself has hinted at Eze's importance without naming him directly. After the Tottenham victory, the manager spoke about the need for players who can break pressure, dictate rhythm, and stay composed when the game becomes chaotic. Those inside the club believe those comments were aimed at Ease as much as anyone. The coaching staff has been particularly impressed by how quickly he has adapted to Arsenal's positional play structure, a system that demands far more tactical discipline than what he was used to at Crystal Palace. Analysts at the club point to his growing influence not only in the final third, but also in build-up phases, where his ability to glide past pressure could help Arsenal bypass Bayern's aggressive midfield line. There is also an awareness that Bayern's fullbacks tend to push high, leaving spaces between the lines. Ease's skill set, sharp turns, deceptive acceleration, and precise final balls, could be exactly what Arteta needs to exploit those gaps. Outside the club, pundits have already started circling Wednesday's match as a defining moment for the £67.5 million signing. Some believe that if Ease can impose himself on a Champions League quarter-final against Bayern Munich, it will confirm his arrival among Europe's elite creative players. Former players have echoed that sentiment. Several ex-Arsenal figures, speaking on television over the weekend, highlighted the need for someone who can change the temperature of the match with a moment of calm or an unexpected burst of creativity. Ease, they argued, is one of the few in the squad capable of both. Meanwhile, Bayern Munich come into the match with their own confidence. Their midfield trio has been one of the most dominant in Europe this season, and they have shown a repeated ability to suffocate opponents early. That dynamic is precisely why Arteta may lean on Ease's composure. When the game tightens, Arsenal will need a player capable of slowing it down, protecting the ball, and finding solutions in tight spaces. Within Arsenal's dressing room, Mourinho's praise reflects a broader consensus. Senior players have reportedly been struck by Ease's humility and work ethic, qualities that have helped him integrate seamlessly into a squad that already had strong internal chemistry. Staff members describe him as someone who never forces the game and lets the match come to him, characteristics that could prove invaluable in a high-tension Champions League tie. As kickoff approaches, the narrative surrounding the match has shifted. What began as a test of Arsenal's resilience has quietly become a spotlight on whether Ease can elevate them in Europe the same way he has in the Premier League. For Arteta, the equation is simple. If Arsenal are to overcome Bayern, they will need more than intensity. They will need control. They will need creativity. And increasingly, they will need the completeness Ease brings to every phase of the pitch. Whether he starts in a wide role as a floating midfielder, or even as an interior playmaker, the expectation is the same. Ease will have to find the spaces others cannot, and influence the game in ways that statistics alone will not capture. The stakes are high, the opponent is formidable, and the spotlight is intense. But within the walls of London Coney, the belief is growing that this is exactly the kind of stage Ebereki Ease was signed for. Martin Odegaard is nearing a return to action after suffering a medial collateral ligament injury in Arsenal's 2-0 win over West Ham earlier in October. Yet, 3.5 years after Mikel Arteta named him captain, the Norwegian finds himself in an unfamiliar position. His place in the starting lineup is no longer guaranteed. For the first time since joining the club permanently from Real Madrid in August 2021, there is real debate over whether he remains an automatic choice for Arteta's 11. Odegaard, now 26, has been central to Arsenal's resurgence under Arteta, the conductor who shaped the team's rhythm through some of their most fluid football. But this season, the Gunners have been forced to navigate long stretches without their captain, first due to a shoulder issue that kept him out of 4 matches in September, and then because of the knee collision with West Ham's Crescencio Somerville that sidelined him again. And during his absence, something significant happened. Ebereki Ease stepped into the spotlight. Ease's sensational hat-trick in the North London Derby has complicated the picture. Now thriving in a central role, the England international has given Arsenal a different kind of presence around the edge of the box. A blend of unpredictability, directness, and two-footed confidence that opponents struggle to contain. He may not control games with the same metronomic precision as Odegaard, but he offers a spark, a willingness to take risks at moments when Arsenal need a jolt of creativity. After such a standout performance against Tottenham, it feels almost impossible to imagine Arteta leaving Ease out. The manager has always had a soft spot for players riding a wave of confidence, and Ease is currently surfing at full height. There was a similar situation back in September, when Mikel Merino was handed a start against Manchester City after scoring 4 times in 2 games for Spain, including a hat-trick against Turkey. Arteta doesn't hesitate to reward form. Ease has carried that form onto the international stage as well, recently scoring a stunning goal for England in a 2-0 win over Serbia in the World Cup qualifiers at Wembley. Though he can play on the left, It has always been clear that Arteta brought him to the Emirates to operate in midfield. And with Declan Rice and Martin Zubimendi near untouchable in the double pivot, the odds of Ease and Odegaard consistently starting together seem slim. That leaves Odegaard in an unfamiliar position. He needs minutes to rebuild sharpness, yet Arsenal's medical team won't rush him. The plan is likely to ease him back through short substitute appearances before restoring him to larger roles. But even once fully fit, Odegaard faces genuine competition, because Ease has shifted the landscape. His arrival has raised the team's ceiling, and his performances have earned him the right to keep his place. Before the dismantling of Tottenham, Ease had scored only twice for Arsenal, one against Port Vale in the Carabao Cup and another versus his former club Crystal Palace, a clever finish that sealed victory. Now with 5 goals across all competitions, he sits just one behind Odegaard's total from last season, when the captain made 45 appearances. Odegaard's 2023-24 numbers were outstanding: 11 goals, 12 assists, influence written across every competition. That is the standard he must match again if he wants to reclaim his spot, because Ease is hungry, confident, and eager to impress ahead of next summer's World Cup. Arteta will insist that Arsenal need both players at their best if they are to meet their ambitions in the months ahead. And with Kai Havertz also working his way back to full fitness, potentially slotting into midfield behind marquee striker Victor Gyökeres, the battle for places has never been fiercer at the Emirates. For Odegaard, the message is clear: he must rise to the challenge. His leadership and quality remain unquestioned, but he can no longer rely on reputation alone. If he embraces the competition and fights his way back into the side, his return could push Arsenal to even greater heights. And if the team has already reached this level without several key figures, the potential for what comes next may be even greater. Inside the club, staff members are quietly acknowledging that Arsenal are entering a new phase, one where no player, not even the captain, is immune to tactical evolution. Arteta has spent the past 2 seasons building a squad capable of sustaining pressure across multiple competitions, and the emergence of Ease is a sign that the manager's long-term planning is beginning to bear fruit. Depth is no longer a luxury, it is a necessity. But with depth comes difficult decisions. Arteta has always valued balance in midfield, and the contrasting profiles of Odegaard and Ease force him to reconsider what type of midfield best suits the team's ambitions in Europe and the Premier League. The technical control and spatial awareness that Odegaard brings have defined Arsenal's identity under Arteta. Conversely, Ease's dynamism, physical presence, and unpredictable touches give Arsenal a new dimension, especially against teams that sit deep or defend aggressively in central areas. This internal shift has also caught the attention of analysts and former players. Several pundits have begun to question whether the captaincy should guarantee a place in the lineup, especially at a club with ambitions of challenging for the Champions League. Others argue that Odegaard's leadership is too valuable to sideline, pointing to the standards he sets in training and his influence over younger players. Those debates are already spilling into the media, and they will only intensify as the season progresses. There is also the tactical question of whether Arteta might eventually experiment with a system that accommodates both Ease and Odegaard, something he briefly attempted earlier in the season during the win over West Ham. But with Rice and Zubimendi forming an almost impenetrable midfield pairing, any reshuffle risks destabilizing the defensive structure that has made Arsenal one of the most resilient teams in the league. The manager has hinted that he is open to adjustments, but only if they enhance the team's overall cohesion. For Odegaard himself, the challenge is as much psychological as it is physical. He has worked hard to cultivate an image of calm authority, a leader who raises the level of those around him through clarity and consistency. Now he must show that he can adapt, compete, and respond to adversity. His teammates still speak of him with admiration, describing him as one of the most studious and detail-oriented players at London Coney. They believe that once he regains full rhythm, he will naturally reassert his influence. Yet even they acknowledge that the landscape has shifted. One senior player privately remarked that, "The team is different now, Ease has changed what we can do in the final third." That sentiment reflects not a lack of faith in Odegaard, but an understanding that Arsenal have evolved while he has been sidelined. For Arteta, the ideal scenario is straightforward: a fully fit Odegaard competing with a fully confident Ease, creating a level of internal competition that lifts the entire squad. The manager often speaks about the need for healthy tension among his players, pressure that keeps standards high without fracturing unity. The arrival of Victor Gyökeres, combined with the recovery of Havertz, only amplifies that dynamic. Arsenal's season will almost certainly hinge on these midfield decisions. With Champions League knockout matches approaching and the Premier League title race tightening, Arteta must decide not only who starts, but what kind of identity he wants his team to carry into the defining months of the campaign. The next few weeks will reveal whether Odegaard's return sparks a resurgence or a battle for relevance. If he manages to reclaim his place, it could serve as a reminder of why Arteta trusted him with the armband in the first place. If he struggles, it will underline how rapidly Arsenal are progressing, and how little room there is for sentiment at the highest level. Either way, the captain's response will shape not just his future, but the trajectory of a team that believes it is on the brink of something significant.